The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Max Henderson. Max is the Chief Data Officer at Datastream Cyber Insurance. Max, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat a bit about what we're doing at Datastream.
Yeah, and we're excited to have you. Let's get straight into it. Before we talk about all the cool stuff you're doing at Datastream, can you give us a little bit of a background on you and where you got started in tech and what's led you to where you are today as the Chief Data Officer?
I love stories about people's backgrounds getting into technology because everyone has a very unique journey. And I think as many technologists will attest to, the path is quite often nonlinear. So I grew up in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. I lived right next to an Amish farm, which was fun. And way back then, I fell in love with football and thought I was going to be the next Brett Favre type quarterback. But lo and behold, I only ended up being 5'6", so needed to find a new dream. And my dad was an engineer at Lockheed Martin for years and years, so that kind of got me down the technology path. I took my first physics class at the end of high school and absolutely fell in love, and so decided I should go full in and ended up going down the PhD physicist route. I went to Drexel University, and my focus was on biophysical models of the brain. So we were quite interested in trying to look at brain cross-sections of monkeys as they aged, and we saw some really interesting changes in their neuronal structure as they aged. So a lot of our work was in doing these computer simulations of very biophysically detailed neural networks, which turns out is quite difficult. If you really jack up the level of biophysical reality for even a single neuron, it can be quite computationally complex. And so all of this work around simulating these neural networks with all this detail kind of naturally led me to more simplified models in the machine learning space, which I found quite interesting as a way to help understand some of the results we were seeing from a very different vantage point. So my PhD studies naturally was a segue into machine learning models, neural networks, and all things data. And at the same time, as I mentioned, my dad had been this long time worker at Lockheed. I ended up trying to go down the engineering route a little bit during summers. So I was probably like Lockheed Martin's longest intern. I worked there 6 summers in a row. And the reason I stayed on, they bought one of the world's first commercially available quantum computers, which quantum computing is a fascinating new technology. It's a brand new sort of hardware device that people are looking into to try to solve really hard problems that aren't tractable on classical hardware devices. So while I was doing my PhD work, I got the chance to do some interesting research in basically figuring out how to use machine learning applications on quantum computers. So that also got me pretty entrenched in the data science machine learning world. And after graduating, I came upon the startup world and found myself working at QxBranch, which merged together my interest in machine learning and quantum computing. So QxBranch was a software company. We built quantum computing and machine learning applications for Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies, ranging from pharmaceutical companies, energy companies, finance companies. And that was a really fun time to, I think, learn how to manage a product and manage a project development from scratch. Got to write a bunch of papers while working there. Eventually, that company got acquired by Rigetti Computing, which is a hardware quantum computing company that actually just went public about a month ago. And while at Rigetti, I was really wanting to continue my own sort of career growth and felt like I wanted to get a shot at being closer to a founder member of a startup, wanted to try actually having a lot more of that strategic decision making on my shoulders and get that experience rather than just helping build some things from other leadership teams. And I reached out to some other people that were still connected from that startup community And that's how I ended up at Datastream. They're a spin out of people connected from the QxBranch world that have a completely separate company called Envelop Risk that's based out of London that have been tackling cyber insurance modeling problems for years. And Datastream is essentially a targeted startup aimed specifically at the small to medium business market in the United States. And I'm lucky to be employee number 2 there and leading the data science groups as the chief data officer.
Amazing. Quite the journey. Really appreciate you going into such detail about it, particularly your early interests and how some opportunistic internships have led you on this path and find yourself as the CDO of a very exciting startup. You talked a little bit about the mission at Datastream, but can you give us a bit more of a comprehensive overview of the industry that you guys are working in, the mission of the business, what problems you're trying to tackle, and then talk about just how critical the use of AI and analytics is when you're talking about cyber insurance?
Absolutely. So for those who have never heard of cyber insurance before, which is not surprising because it is relatively new, cyber insurance is just another insurance product, just like you would buy life insurance or fire insurance for your house or car insurance for your car. Companies buy cyber insurance products. And the reason, again, they buy it is the same anyone does for any insurance product. You're really trying to avoid catastrophic losses. So companies will buy cyber insurance policies in the case that they suffer a painful cyber attack that causes large, financial losses. And the goal is that cyber insurance product should make that company whole up until the limit, obviously, on the policy, and allow their business to continue to function and not have to go bankrupt in just dealing with the financial losses of those cyber attacks. This is a really compelling product in the world that we're in right now, particularly as we saw how digital the world accelerated during COVID. I think it's never been, more apparent that so many services have, been transitioning to be offered in that digital manner, which is incredibly good for efficiency, but it does further open up the sort of digital attack surface of companies for bad guys out there that would love to hack them for purposes that range from getting money from these companies to just defacing them to just wanting to make a name for themselves as hackers, you name it. So what the cyber insurance industry has been trying to do for years and has really struggled with is they have tried to figure out how to tackle the problem of evaluating the risk of individual companies. So, again, we've got decades worth of really good detailed data on fire insurance policies, on auto insurance policies, on life insurance policies. So actuaries can make really good pricing models that accurately, precisely calculate the risk of different individuals. And that is just a really hard problem right now for cyber. The differences are probably pretty apparent. Unlike some of these other insurable industries, cyber has been around a really short amount of time, which means that just the sort of data out there for getting that certainty around risk is a lot tougher. And the other challenge is that cyber is very quick to evolve, even year to year. Again, to talk about what happened during COVID, the insurance market for cyber actually lost quite a lot of money because previously relatively safe industries to insure, such as manufacturing, construction, energy, that these fields typically didn't have a lot of records, things like personally identifiable information. So they were deemed to be a bit lower risk than some other verticals like finance. But ransomware erupted 2020 and 2021 and was an incredibly costly event for a manufacturing company that could no longer produce products because their assembly line was shut down. So you started to see some massive losses come in from previously relatively low risk industry verticals. And the culprit is, again, due to the fact that the cyber risk landscape can really change dramatically, even year to year. So the cyber insurance industry as a whole faces a really important problem trying to measure this risk of all the different companies out there, but a really hard problem. The data, again, up till now has been relatively limited, and the risk itself can move pretty fast. That modeling problem is something that DataStream Insurance really wants to tackle straight on. So we build products for our customers that help them better prepare for the worst case scenarios. So we help them get equipped with tools like incident response plans and disaster recovery plans to help make sure that if they do suffer a loss, that they're able to respond to it as efficiently as possible and minimize the severity of that loss. We also generate reports of their overall cyber risk from the variables that we can collect on them and try to put that together so that the customers are better prepared when they apply for insurance and can also just make sure that their cybersecurity standards are meeting what we think should be met across all companies based in the US. And we also try to use our data to make better pricing models so we can really give accurate assessments of what single company risks look like. And these, again, are going to have to constantly change over time, which is both hard but exciting for us on the data science team. And so this is some of the main things we try to provide to our customers, tools that help them in the event that something bad does happen, and preparation to be in the best possible state that they can be when they're applying for insurance, and the ability to have really clear economic measurements for what their cyber risk looks like. This is, I guess, a final point here is just that there are extremely good cybersecurity companies out there, but often they just haven't had the right data to express cyber risk in a really concrete way. There's lots of tools that'll give you a score from 0 to 100 or A to F for how your cyber posture looks. But the beauty of insurance is that we try to put everything into economic terms, which there's no fluff there. When we talk about cyber risk, it really is in terms of expected losses from a monetary perspective from different types of attacks and coverage areas.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Talk to us a little bit more about your role as the Chief Data Officer. You mentioned that you are employee number 2, and the role that you've taken is quite all-encompassing, and it's going to grow and evolve over time. But what has the journey been like over the first year since joining the founders? And talk to us about the vision for your broader data team from where it is now to where it's going in the coming years.
It's been quite the journey. Again, one of the main reasons I was so excited to join DataStream, in addition to the problem I think being so important to solve, is that I really did want that experience to really tackle more of a leadership role within a company, especially in the position of the Chief Data Officer, which to me is more than just knowing how to build good models. It's about building a team and having a strategy around data that is going to make your company incredibly strategically to grow and hopefully do quite well within a niche of a market. So along with all the normal startup stuff that one gets to do as one of the number 1 or 2 hires within a company, which includes, of course, tons of strategic decision making, putting together plans for how we're going to build out our technology roadmap, all the fun about trying to hire people that really are a good fit for your company and the vision that you're going for. On the data side, I think really what we focused on are building out the right frameworks that make it easier for our customers to give us the data that we're going to need anyway for them to apply for cyber insurance. And then the modeling component, which is trying to use some of that data to help them better understand their cyber risk based off of, again, some of the insurance policy data that we are able to access through our parent company. So the strategy in large part that we are trying to do and trying to make easier for our customers is tools that generate actionable insights or useful reports for our customers every time they give us their data, because their data is very cherished and we want to treat that incredibly securely. And we want to make it functional for them as well. 2 main areas that we've been really building out as the data team has grown and as we're moving into the future are various types of tools which help collect useful data to help them understand their cyber risk from a modeling perspective, and also these tools which collect data that make the insurance process overall a lot easier for our customers. Right now, as the cyber insurance market has hardened, it often takes quite a long time to get quotes. So even if you are recognizing as a small business that there is this need for you to get a cyber insurance policy to make sure you're mitigating catastrophic potential cyber loss, you might be given a 30-page PDF to fill out, and that can be quite burdensome on a small to medium-sized business, and you might have to do this for every insurer that you'd be going to. A lot of the technology we build is for trying to get this data more easily from our customers and to essentially eat the pain of actually mapping all of that to these various applications while providing, again, useful reporting throughout this process. So that, I think, is two of the main thrusts that we're doing right now on the data team at DataStream, figuring out good tools to collect this data, which makes the insurance process more easy for our end customers, and at the same time providing modeling insights from all this data throughout the process as well.
Max, when you think about your role and the growth of DataStream, big part of what you're going to be tasked with is building out the infrastructure and building out the teams. So as you start to speak to candidates about this space, which is not as well known as some of the more traditional data markets or finance markets, what are some of the things you tell candidates about why this industry and DataStream in particular is a great opportunity for them and could be a good place to work?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I think that there's sort of a couple different angles that we think about for why this is such an exciting space to be working in right now, and why in particular DataStream is a great place to work. One of the really powerful and I think altruistic things about insurance is that it really does try to make the world safer. I live in Philadelphia, and Ben Franklin was one of the folks that helped make sure fire insurance actually got created. So, after looking at Philadelphia and New York and Boston and London, he and others wanted to make an insurance product that simultaneously would protect these families from catastrophic loss, but also make the entire world safer by, only allowing individuals to get a fire insurance policy on their home if they took some proper mitigations. So, for instance, you couldn't actually get a fire insurance policy on a home if you didn't have an ability to access the roof. The reason for this is pretty obvious. If there was a fire that happened on the top of your roof and you couldn't get up there to actually put it out with water or smother it, that is a big risk. So the kind of power of insurance is that it allows the insurer, if properly priced, to make a profit. It protects the individual holding the product from catastrophic loss. But the insurer also has this power of making sure that everyone's doing the right thing, making sure they're actually doing what they should be, so that they're not the type of house that would get lit on fire and not be able to deal with it to begin with. And I think that there's such a existential threat around everything cyber that you're going to see insurance play a really powerful part in helping just make sure the entire landscape of the industry, both here in the US and abroad, adheres to better cyber hygiene policies, or they're going to be essentially ranked as uninsurable. So one of the things I think that's really exciting about working at DataStream is that the company really cares about this altruistic goal, which is just trying to make the whole world a safer place for businesses to survive and thrive as the digital world is constantly changing. And we think by closely monitoring and making sure our customers are adhering to these cybersecurity best practices that are now becoming the standard across the insurance world, not only are these companies going to be able to get covered and DataStream be a profitable business, it'll make the whole world safer from some of these catastrophic attacks that we've seen. So that's, I think, one of the really powerful and interesting reasons folks have wanted to work at DataStream. They see the kind of goal that we're going for and how it would have a positive impact on society. I think for the folks that we're hiring on our data science and software team, the other real interesting draw is that we are dealing with some really fun data. We are grabbing whatever we can on companies and trying to build really well-calibrated models that use information from firmographic details of companies, such as their revenue, their line of business in their industry, and some of their additional financial data, to data we can collect on their external networks around various technologies, and internal data as well. So there is this plethora of different data sources and quite a lot of noise to shift through as well, that allows for our data scientists and engineers to build some really interesting systems to test. So we model using everything from unsupervised algorithms, trying to cluster our companies based on their technologies, to supervised models, where again, we are trying to predict very accurate premium price ranges on every company that's coming through our door. And there's lots and lots of opportunities as our data grows to continue building out this suite of models, both in the unsupervised and supervised spaces, which help us better translate these various features that we collect on our customers into, again, insights that we can show to the end users. And so that also leads to lots of opportunities for learning about how to better visualize data and tell a story with that data to our end users. They really care about, what they need to do or what they should do from a cyber risk perspective. And so a lot of the fun modeling work we do still has to ultimately translate into a nice visual story that we can tell to those customers and help guide them towards making sure, again, they're at the best possible security position so that, one, they're more safe from cyber attacks, and two, that they get the most favorable pricing they can on the quotes that we're able to get for them.
Amazing. Max, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate you sharing your story, how you've got to where you're at today, talking to us all about DataStream, the emerging industry that is cyber insurance, and what you guys are building at DataStream. It sounds like it's a fun place to work, and it could be a great time for somebody to join. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at DataStream the best of luck in the coming months and years ahead. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.